Experts maintain that a healthy planet is not an option, it is a necessity. Therefore, efforts must be made to restore the Earth to what it used to be, a healthy environment for survival. Now, this explains the setting aside of March 22nd every year as International Mother Earth Day, to remind the world that the Earth and its ecosystems provide life and sustenance, hence the need to preserve it. As Nigeria joins the rest of the world to commemorate the day, what measures should be put in place to save the Earth from further degradation? Now, this is our focus on Nigeria Today. My name is Victor Azu. Welcome to the program. Now joining me to discuss the subject is Dr. John Osonwa. He's a U.S.-trained climate change, renewable energy, and environmental expert with 25 years of experience. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Now, just what do we refer to as the Earth, and how important is it to mankind?
Well, when we talk about the Earth, we're looking at the ground we're standing on. We're looking at what is inside. We're also looking at what is in the atmosphere. So it's an all-encompassing concept. When we say Mother Earth, we're looking at three dimensions: what is beneath our feet, what is on top, what is on top of the soil, and also what is in the atmosphere. So you need to look at those three dimensions in order to have a healthy Earth.
And what do we know about the state of the Earth? Now, based on available research, and how far are we from the original?
We have gone so far. And what is so shocking about this is in the last 100 years, we have done more degradation than we had in the last 5,000 years of recorded history. And the reasons are numerous, but the most striking one is our quest for industrialization. The raw materials for industrialization in most cases come from the earth, and we are harvesting these resources, whether we're talking about coal, oil, gas, minerals. These things, we're harvesting them at a pace that is not sustainable. Then when you come on what we are doing above ground, we're also polluting the atmosphere. Every year we're putting out 30 billion tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. So the pace of consumption is not sustainable, and that is what is troubling for a lot of us who are environmentalists. Nobody says you shouldn't use resources. The problem is always, are you using the resources sustainably? And we are not.
And when you say, are we using the resources sustainably, what actions and inactions, for instance, might be responsible for the degradation of the Earth?
The primary focus is fossil fuels. Again, when we're talking about fossil fuels, we're looking at those things that you dig up from the ground to use as your energy resources.
When you talk about energy now, are you talking about energy to move vehicles, for instance, or are you talking about energy in relation to power?
All of the above. When you talk about energy, we're talking about coal, we're talking about oil, we're talking about gas, those things that you extract from the ground that you use to fuel your industrialization mechanisms. Whether you're looking at transportation, you're looking at energy, you're looking at even airlines, you're looking at even home power consumption, home cooking, home heating. All these things consume energy. And in the past, we have been using resources that are not renewable and sustainable. So we are now moving away from that. You see that there's a rapid move towards solar energy, wind energy, biofuels. These are things that can be sustained, that can be renewed. So we need to move in that direction, because Earth is not an infinite resource. For instance, if you have a bucket of water and you're fetching from it, inevitably you're going to run out of water. So you need to find a way to be replenishing what you're taking. And we're not doing that in a lot of instances.
When you are talking about things that come from the ground, could you also be talking about mining, for instance?
Yes, there's a lot of degradation that is going on. We're not just talking about sustainability of the consumption of resources, we're also talking about the degradation that we cause in extracting these resources. You and I are very familiar with what has happened in the Niger Delta region. Organic cleanup is perhaps the organic degradation, and oil spill is perhaps the most egregious instance of pollution in the world today. It's still not cleaned up as we speak. The process is ongoing. You look at other areas in the Niger Delta, you look at some of the areas that are traditionally mining communities, you go in there and you see huge pits that have been left uncovered, unrecovered. And then you now have a lot of water collecting in those places, and the water is not clean water. A lot of times it pollutes, a lot of times it floods the neighboring communities. So when you look at the mining sector in Nigeria, a lot needs to be done. Of course, we've had instances of lead poisoning, people doing crude mining, gold mining in the Zamfara region. That led to a lot of deaths, children dying of lead poisoning.
Indeed.
Yes, so we need to do a lot more.
And in the 21st century, climate change is possibly one of the most used phrases that you could find anywhere around. What is the role of climate change in all of this? Yes. Because when you say climate change now, you're not talking about exactly talking about deliberate human actions. This is natural too.
Yes. When we talk about climate change, we're basically saying that the climate that we are used to is changing, and in most cases for the worse. Climate change is what we call a threat multiplier, and what that means is if you used to have heavy rains, when you have climate change situation, you're going to have more severe rains. They're going to be more frequent. They're going to be more severe. We're seeing hurricanes. We're seeing forest fires. We're seeing heat waves. We are seeing species depletion. We are seeing a lot of things that
were not there before.
Yes.
Or not at the same level.
At the same scale. Yes, at the same scale. So that is the problem with climate change. You're looking at, okay, when you get into the farming, the agricultural sector in Nigeria, we have what we call weather variability now. And what that basically means is that you can no longer draw a clear line between rainy season and Harmattan season. The rains come sporadically. They vary from place to place. So you can't have that natural prediction of planting season and harvest season. So that's messing up agriculture in a lot of places. So those are some, and then of course you also have species abnormalities now. Things that you could rely on before in terms of animal behavior, you can't rely on those things. So climate change is a major, in fact, it is the single most critical threat to mankind now, because it permeates so many areas of our existence. Whether you're looking at the temperature, heat waves, you're looking at extreme weather events, hurricanes, tornadoes, cyclones in southern Africa here, desertification north of Nigeria, Chad, Niger. Much of what we see about herdsmen, farmers clashes can be directly attributed to climate change, because the climate there has become so dry. Lake Chad has dried up by over 95%. So water resources are not there. Grass is not as abundant as it used to be. So there's a natural trend to migrate southward. We call it forced migration. It's a natural outcome of climate change.
But then climate change is not directly responsible. It might be responsible for migration, But is it responsible for the conflicts?
Yes, because I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's the only reason that we're having conflicts in Nigeria, but it's a major contributor, and here are the reasons why. You have 20 million cattle in Nigeria at any given point. You have about, of course, we're trying to tag them now, and then you have about 50 million sheep, about 50 million goats also on any given day in Nigeria. And all those animals must graze. And if you look at the frontline northern states, we don't have enough grass anymore. There's just not enough land to sustain that kind of population of livestock. You don't have the water again. Water is drying up. Within the Lake Chad region alone, over 30 million people have been forced to migrate out because the water resources from to about 25,000 square kilometers of water, it's now less than 2,000. That's over a 95% shrinkage. So those things are forcing people to migrate because the land for livelihood, for humans to live, is not there. The land to sustain the livestock is not there. So they are being forced to migrate, to look for greener pastures. Unfortunately, as they are coming down, they're also encountering farmlands where people have planted. People like myself who've planted things, and you begin to have clashes. So it's a major contributor to what we're seeing.
You sound like we're far lost from where we should be, and I'm wondering if there is any way back. But it's time for us to take a break just so we could hear from Nigerians and pick their thoughts on the subject. When we return, I think that will be the first thing I pose to you. Nigeria Today, we'll be right back.
Basically, when you talk about solving problems on climate change, you look at ozone layer depletion. And the surest way to combat such issue is by afforestation. And you also reduce greenhouse gas emission. That means going green, using cleaner source of energy. Things like solar and hydroelectrical source of energy instead of going for combustion engines and their likes.
The town planners should get involved. Waste should be directed to certain places, designated places where you keep them, and then the government, or if it's commissioned to a private sector investor, they'll go pick it from there and recycle it. That's what is done in other climes.
In my suggestion, I would like to say that the government should establish laws and policies that prevent deforestation, and that the public should be encouraged to plant more trees in the environment.
My advice to Nigeria is that each one of us should be very, very vigilant, keep the environment clean, make sure all the dirty you can take you to the right place.
Welcome back, and in case you've just tuned in, you're right on time for Nigeria Today, where we have been discussing preserving the earth. Now, I don't know how much you agree with those Nigerians there, but how far lost are we?
I totally agree with what all of them have said. Those are things that we need to do, of course, in their own rudimentary.
I don't even know all of it. I wonder why we're not doing them.
Well, that's always the problem we encounter. You see, if you want to have a very robust and successful environmental protection regime, you need three things, what I call the 3 E's. You need enactment, you need enlightenment, and you need enforcement. When it comes to enactment, I'm a professor of environmental law. I've been teaching it for many years. We have enough laws on our books in Nigeria. We are not lacking in. Of course, some of the laws we need to update in terms of fines, but we have enough laws in our books. When it comes to enlightenment, I think media houses like NTA and some of the other houses, as well as private individuals, are doing a very good job of sensitizing Nigerians to the harmful effects of environmental degradation. The problem we have is enforcement, the last E in Nigeria. That has always been a perennial problem. We don't do vigorous enforcement. We don't do honest enforcement in Nigeria. I'm sorry to say that. And of course, the regulatory agencies, I'm very familiar with a lot of them, they are trying their best. But in a lot of cases, you see that we don't have enough resources and we don't have enough spread to contain environmental degradation. So that is a major problem that we need to address. Awareness, we are doing very well. And enactment, we are doing okay. Enforcement, we need to ramp up enforcement. And when I say enforcement, we don't necessarily have to put everything on government. There are 3 tiers of government in Nigeria, and each tier has a role to play in enforcement. Even community clusters can play a role in enforcement. You see a lot of estates now, they are dumping refuse in places they shouldn't dump refuse. During the rainy season, that whole stuff will wash into their drainage systems. It causes disease. It causes flooding in a lot of estates. So those people within the estate can form their own government in terms of environmental cleanup and do the needful.
Now, the theme for this year's commemoration is Restore Our Earth. How exactly, in simple terms, do we do that?
You see, in the past few years, we have been focusing on what we call mitigation and adaptation. And basically, we are saying that we should be taking steps to avoid climate change. For instance, reduce your carbon emissions. For instance, switch to alternative energy. Watch how you consume certain things. And then we look at adaptation. Adaptation is, now that we know climate change is here, in the north you're having desertification. What do? We plant more trees. We preserve our water. We know that on the coastal regions we're having more flooding. What do? You build embankment. That was the focus for many, many years. Mitigation, adaptation. But this year we're saying, wait a minute. Prevention is always better than cure. Why don't we focus on natural processes that can restore the earth? How do you indulge in natural processes? We plant trees. We don't cut trees in some areas. We watch how we consume resources, even water and food. We're wasting a lot of food. You go to any market in Nigeria, 50% of the food is wasted at the end of the day. How do we, and then a lot of our people are hungry. They go to bed hungry.
But how does that affect the earth?
Wastage of food, it takes resources, it takes water, it takes fertilizer, it takes
my basic
energy.
Understanding is that food that decays adds value to the earth.
But you're wasting more resources. It takes money to plant.
And so how does that impact?
Well, that's what I'm explaining. That's what you ask. How does food wastage impact the earth? You're wasting resources. You're wasting land that can be used for something else to produce the food. You're wasting energy, man energy, woman energy. You're wasting money. You're wasting fertilizer. You're wasting inputs, logistical inputs to bring it to market. All those things harm us. The wastage is harmful to the environment because you now take away resources that could have been directed somewhere else to waste. So that's how it harms us. But getting back to what I was saying, the natural things that we can do. You look at our timber. Nigeria has one of the highest rates of deforestation in the world. Since independence, we have depleted over 55% of our forest. We are depleting a net loss of about 300 hectares for every 1,000 hectares. So it's not sustainable. So we need to find ways. Again, I am not an advocate of not using natural resources. My focus is how do we use it sustainably. That's why we say if you cut down 1 tree, plant 2 or 3. We are not doing that. You look at huge estates. Somebody will have 1,000 houses in an estate, not a single tree planted, not one. And that such an estate will be approved.
But it sounds like tree planting in itself could solve all the problems. Right? Or besides tree planting, what else do we need to do? What
we need to do, we need to look at our farming practices. This business of burning the bush to farm is not a naturally beneficial way of farming. When you burn the topsoil, you burn the nutrients, you burn the natural raw materials that can help your plant to do very well. On top of that, Sometimes we burn areas we are not supposed to burn in the quest to clear farmland. Then even the way we till the soil can also affect the retention of nutrients. But more importantly, we're using harmful pesticides and chemicals. There are natural ways to fertilize the farm. We used to, when we were growing up, we used to use goat droppings and poultry droppings to farm. Those are still very viable ways to get fertilizer. But now everybody is moving to chemical fertilizers, which is very harmful. It even leaves the residue in the food that we consume. So you're seeing a huge prevalence of cancer, of malignant tumors, of things we can't explain because of what we are consuming. On top of that, our people are adulterating the food. Sometimes to ripen foods, they are putting chemicals that shouldn't be there. So the whole agricultural chain needs to be looked at holistically. There's a lot happening that is harming us as human beings and the earth itself.
But then, what I think could solve this problem to a large extent is that people know these things, because when you know, knowledge is power. And so I ask, how should sensitization be done? To what extent can sensitization be done to ensure that Nigerians, particularly those in the rural areas, for instance, get the message and begin to act it out?
Well, as I said, what you people do at the national level with this program is very wonderful. But we also need to cascade the sensitization to the rural villages. And the good thing is, in Nigeria, we have wonderful structures. If you want to have structures from the ward level up to the local government level, state level, those things exist. Traditional institutions exist. Religious institutions proliferate the whole Nigeria. So we need to tap into those existing structures, partner with them, infuse them with the knowledge and resources they need to, and then the information needs to be indigenized, needs to be given in the languages that people understand. So we need to do more, because a lot of these people act out of ignorance. People are putting carbide on food, putting sniper to preserve beans that they are selling to people. And a lot of times you ask them, they say, okay, everybody is using this thing. Oh, that's what we use to preserve. How can you use sniper to preserve beans? And they're using it in doses that are lethal. So a lot of times it's ignorance.
And if you've talked a lot about using natural means to correct what has been done and done wrong.
Yes.
I also wonder, is there any role for artificial means, technology for instance?
Of course. Yes. There are three things we're looking at. When we say restore the earth, we're looking at three things. One is natural processes. The other one is technological advancement. And then the third one is innovative thinking. How can you think creatively to solve some of these problems? I'll give you an example. Right now, it is possible to recycle 100% of the waste that comes out of a particular municipality. The waste, we have mechanisms, we have factories and systems that can take the whole waste stream down to the water and treat it. The metals are separated and recycled. The organic matter is combusted in a way that it can become fertilizer, or it can become pavement material. You can use it as interlocking stones. You can use it as gravel for your highways. You can make poles with it. Then the residue can also be incinerated to generate electricity. 100% recycling is possible. It is only the will to bring these things to bear. Then we're looking at plastics. Plastics, they don't degrade in the system. Some of the plastics we use can be there for about 200 years or 500 years, depending on the composition. There are natural materials that people are evolving now, even made with cassava. You can use cassava, you can use corn to make bags that are biodegradable. If you want to cook them after, you can.
All right, I guess we can go on and on. But at this point, Dr. John Osowa, climate change, renewable energy, and environmental expert, thank you for your time and thoughts.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Nigeria Today is live every weekday at 7:30 in the evening. And you can watch this and other editions of the program on www.youtube.com/NTA News 24 Hub. My name is Victor Azu. Thank you for watching.